Now, as we reported yesterday, the Trump administration has named a new nominee for the CDC director. I will add that it is a cause for concern, especially for those of us who supported the Make America Healthy Again, or MAHA movement. That's because this new appointee, U.S. Navy Dr. Erica Schwartz, has been described at best as a normie when it comes to supporting vaccinations and other egregious impositions upon the medical freedoms of Americans. She was also a stringent COVIDian. And I don't need to define that for you. You and my audience all know what it means when I say COVIDian. That's not all, though. Dr. Peter McCullough reports that the CIA covered up a study from decades ago that they conducted showing that routine, cheap antiparasitics like ivermectin are natural anti-cancer medications. Now, here's one of Dr. McCullough's colleagues explaining. Watch.
Hold on. I'm sorry. The CIA 50 years ago knew that there was evidence that taking an anti-parasitic like ivermectin could reduce tumors, and they classified it and hid it?
Correct. It was a Soviet study. These Soviet scientists found that both tumors and parasites and these antiparasitics exerted similar mechanisms, and they found that it exerted anti-cancer activity in animals. And that study was classified by the CIA in the 50s and not declassified until 2011. So, that did significantly set back some of this vital cancer research.
So, it just further confirms what we already knew, that the government routinely lies to the American people. Actually, a statement that RFK Jr. referenced and announcing his new podcast, saying he's going to be straightforward, right, as HHS secretary on his podcast with the American people. Our government forces the people to take pest medications that are known either to be unsafe or nowhere as effective as cheaper drugs like ivermectin. And now the Trump administration is nominating someone to lead the CDC who is basically much more in line with the CIA and Big Pharma and their predecessors at the CDC that we all criticize than they are with the medical rights of we, the American people, and definitely much more aligned with the bad people than the MAHA coalition that brought President Trump to power for a second time. What is going on? To help us answer the most basic question is Dr. Peter McCullough. He's also of the Wellness Company and the McCullough Foundation. It's so good to see you, Dr. McCullough. It's been some time. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
I reported, I don't know if you saw this on my X account recently. I've been told that anyone that was MAHA has been sidelined at HHS. And that RFK Jr. is now surrounded by big pharma lobbyists at HHS. And I would say, I don't need insiders to tell me that. And you probably don't need in the audience us to tell you that, because this latest CDC pick basically confirms that to the public. What say you, Dr. McCullough?
Yeah, I'd say let's give her a chance. Erica Schwartz, she's got a really impressive government resume. And let's see if on this pick, the ship can start to be turned from within the government. She seems like a very good foot soldier. And, she was in the office of the Surgeon General under the Trump administration and in the first Trump administration. Let's see if some progress can be made. If she has concerns now regarding COVID-19 vaccines and excessive childhood vaccination, we're going to have an awakening from within at some point in time. What RFK has had challenges doing is what's called radical transparency. We're not seeing that. And then bringing in external people as these transformational change agents, it really hasn't worked out so far.
It certainly hasn't. I'll have to say I'm really surprised, and good on you for giving the new CDC nominee an opportunity. I actually feel because she was under the former Trump Surgeon General, who I remember him when he was there, nice guy. I liked him. I liked him as a person, but he promoted masks, endlessly. He was very pro, let's push these jabs as hard as we can. He was not pro therapeutics like ivermectin. Funny story though about the former Surgeon General who she worked under, right? I was pregnant at the time in 2020 with my second child. I mean, I was about to pop too. Still going to the White House. I'm sending a Secret Service at the security gate with all these male reporters, who they didn't love me on the best day, and they certainly didn't love me when they thought that I was going to give birth right there on the White House grounds. But the Surgeon General did assure everybody that he could deliver the baby if I did go into immediate labor. And you just seen those reporters' faces, like the AP and the Hill, they all went white as a ghost. So that reminded me of that. Sorry, I digress. Just a funny little story now that we're talking about 2020 and the Surgeon General. But is there anything, obviously she, has a lot of education, but you feel that perhaps she's not a committed COVIDian and that she's not totally owned by Big Pharma? She's been very pro-mandates for vaccines.
I know, but she was under the prior Trump administration. She knows where the sentiments are in the country. And you're right, Maha helped Trump get elected. Remember, she's going to be very effective from within. So if she starts to initiate research on, let's say, COVID vaccine safety, and she begins to call together investigations on the origins of the autism epidemic, she'd be a lot more effective as a CDC director than somebody from outside, because she's going to be respected by the 12,000 CDC employees. So, I do like this idea of trying to pick an inside candidate and be effective in government.
Okay, I see what you're saying. And if she does that, you're right. It's harder for them to discredit her. As opposed to maybe some of the candidates that we would have loved to have seen. So that makes sense to me. I can agree with you there. I do want to get to the cancer cover up, right? The therapeutics for cancer, because every day we're hearing news that somebody else has turbo cancer, right? Our loved ones who didn't listen to us on the jabs and might now be experiencing turbo cancer.
Right.
It's not that it's new science suggesting that ivermectin, mebendazole work to treat cancer. It's that we've probably known this for a while and they kept it under wraps, correct?
Correct. So what may have happened is the CDC, the government agencies, in this case, the intelligence community, the CIA, they're distrustful of information from Russia. You can imagine Cold War era, Russia may have an innovation on cancer. They're afraid that it could mislead our country if it was incorrect. Now, it turns out the anti-cancer properties of ivermectin and mebendazole now are well solidified in the literature. In fact, Johns Hopkins has a patent on the use of mebendazole as an anti-cancer agent, and they're advancing forward. So, it is unfortunate to see evidence of either slow-walking generic drug development for a serious problem like cancer or suppressing information, and that's indeed what we found.
Well, it's unfortunate because we've lost a lot of people, good people, while this was suppressed. But we're seeing, I know, you all are doing great work as it relates to treating people or offering them the alternative to treat their cancer with these therapeutics, in conjunction with, some people are choosing to do it in conjunction with conventional methods. I know some of those people who are doing that right now. Finally, I was trying to look for, if you saw me looking down, I had wanted this added into the segment because I have a family member who has suffered from Lyme disease for several years now. It's a serious disease. I now also know a child who's around my son's age at his school who's seriously suffering from it. I couldn't find the heading real fast for us, but they're warning that this is the worst tick season ever. And it is kind of wild because we found a tick on my 5-year-old daughter when she came home from school the other day. My son tells me, we're spreading ticks around school. No, I explained to him, kids don't spread ticks like they spread lice. They come from outside, but it does appear that there are more ticks. And I just will note it's in time for apparently a new Lyme disease vaccine that is coming from Pfizer. And, we now know that Lyme disease, it has been now verified, was created, in a government lab like COVID. So, I just have to bring it up because we've all now been through the pandemic and we are very paranoid. is there something to this, Dr. McCullough, and how do people protect themselves?
Yes, Lyme is becoming more prevalent for sure, bigger risk zones. My wife several years ago actually got Lyme disease down here in Texas. And so it's reaching as far south as Texas. The vaccine's not going to be a solution. And even the current vaccine that was just trialed, the problem is it installs some of the antigens that cause chronic Lyme disease. And the parts of the organism, Borrelia burgdorferi, are retained in the body after the tick bite or after taking the vaccine. It causes the arthritis and what's called the pathogen-associated molecular pattern, or PAMPs. That's the sine qua non of Lyme disease. The answer is good insect prevention and repellent, and then immediate treatment. And at the Wellness Company, we have emergency medical kits, and we have a protocol for a high-risk tick bite to immediately get doxycycline, which is what I did in my wife's case, and kill the infection immediately so it doesn't develop into chronic Lyme.
I didn't know you all had that. I think that's very important, especially for us mothers. So how fast do you need to get the doxycycline in the system? So this is something you should have on hand. And there's a whole protocol. I actually did not know this.
There's a whole
I'm reassured.
Protocol. I believe it's 36 hours. So you have to get going on this. And the only way to do it is have the medicine pre-prescribed in a Wellness Company emergency medical kit.
Well, I can tell you, as someone who's watched a family member suffer for years and did develop rheumatoid arthritis from the Lyme disease, and I mean, very severe rheumatoid, it's nasty stuff. You don't want to mess with it, and you should listen to what they're telling you. If they're telling you it's going to be a bad tick season, we've learned to listen when they put that in the corporate media. Dr. McCullough, it's always so enlightening to talk to you. Thank you so much for taking the time for us today.
Thank you.